Welcome back to Pursuing Justice. I'm Harriet Hendel. We've begun a series of podcasts that started last month where we were talking about the impact of prison on children when one or both parents are incarcerated. Amy Friedman, a friend of mine, a writer, and an activist from California, was one of our guests. She created a club for high school students called POPS, Pain of the Prison System, a club which offered a safe place to share that intimate fact, having a parent behind bars. Today, 5 million children have a parent in prison. Thanks to Amy, I will be speaking with 4 young adults who are all too familiar with the many challenges of staying connected to a mom or a dad in a correctional facility. Over the next few weeks, we will meet these very special guests, each of whom have handled their situation differently. And today, we have Katherine Secaida with us. Thank you, Katherine, for spending time with us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right. So far in our series about POPs and echoes of incarceration, we've talked about the benefits of organizations like this for young people, particularly those in high school. How did you come to learn about POPs and how old were you?
I was at Venice High School. I was in my sophomore year, so I was 16 years old, around 15 or 16. I had an English teacher, Mr. Danziger, who is a co-founder of POPs, and he gave our English class a prompt of where we came from. And I wrote about how I came from being affected by the school-to-prison pipeline and how my father was incarcerated. And when I went to one of the group sessions during lunch, I realized it was such a safe space. You know, there was warm food. I remember we had like pasta and salad, and it just felt very loving. And I got to hear people's stories, so it was really nice.
That's great. How many kids at that time, when you were around 15 or 16, were at the club at the beginning when you first joined?
Wow, so it was packed, the classroom. There were kids standing from the back with no seats.
Wow.
A lot of us were just, there was just so many people. I'm going to say like about 20 to 30 kids.
That's amazing. That is. And did it change? Did the numbers change over the years that you were at Venice High School?
Throughout the years that I was there, every single Wednesday, which was the day that we would all meet, it was always full. And whenever we had guest speakers, it would be even more full. So it was really amazing.
That's terrific. Now, I know, Amy, when we had our interview, she said initially the kids say, "Oh, I'm just coming for the food."
Yeah.
Yeah. But how does the word get out about a club like that?
Luckily, I found out because I was in an English class that with Dennis Danziger, who knows more about it. And I would go to my group friends and tell them about it, and so they all supported me, and we all went together. And then it's just by word by mouth, to be honest.
Oh, that's great. Hey, that's the best way, especially at high school, right?
Yes.
How successful do you think a club like POPs really is?
I think it's very successful. Kids, we need to hear kids' voices. The youth is the voice. The youth is the future. And for an organization like this to be, especially in a high school, there's like no words to put other than being very powerful and being very well supported and respected.
Did you feel, well, we know this sense of safety was there, but what other benefits do you think POPs gave you other than that?
POPs gave me lots of benefits. The biggest one that all of us talk about is that we can all say that we are published authors, and that we come into like a yearly anthology with, all of our friends that we grew up with and that we have met. To just even say that is very eye-opening to someone that you just met, saying that, oh, like, I'm an author, and they're like, oh, cool, like, for what?
Yeah, it's very, very impressive, the anthologies.
Yeah.
I have most of them, but now I think they get better and better each year that Pops publishes them. Tell us a little bit about the anthology. We of course can't show it, but you can describe it to us.
So I believe there are about 7 anthologies out here. Every year they get published. There's just so much art with stories, poetry, paintings that as students do, and having all of our work together is just very emotional. But these books, every year they're different. Every year we see each other grow, and every year we learn something from each other and from ourselves.
There's also photography, right?
Yes, there's literally everything in that book.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Now, what happens when the anthology goes to press and comes back as a finished work? What is done with the anthology, other than, of course, give it to the students?
Every year we perform in this huge theater. Every year is different in our locations. So we just perform. We have our teachers from high school, volunteers, people who are curious about Pops, and they just watch us speak. And at the end of showing that to the theater, we just chit chat with each other and create new connections.
I see. Is there an opportunity, excuse me, to read anything that you have written to an audience?
Oh, if I have something right now?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Well, that's a great idea. Do you have something that you could read to us?
I do, but my books are upstairs. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. All right. Oh, I'm sorry we didn't think to share that. Well, tell us what you had written about. Maybe describe it to us.
Of course. So I basically have been writing about how the school to prison pipeline has affected me, and my father's incarceration, how it affected me. And then I write about how I've seen my growth and my struggles as someone who grew up in a low-income area. So that is where I normally write about.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Tell us about what connected you to Pops in terms of a parent in prison.
I mean, just having a safe space, especially when I was in high school, being connected to folks who have been affected by the system and those who are trying to break the chain. So that's how I just feel very connected. Not a lot of people know about the system other than the people who have been affected by the system.
That's right. Why would you know? Now, tell us about your own situation with your dad. What was that like?
It wasn't a surprise. It was more of a matter of time. Him being incarcerated, he's now out, thankfully, but when he was inside, for the first time I have ever seen him very emotional and cry. And then I also saw how he, really kept his emotions inside. And ever since that day, I've been trying to figure him out. I mean, he's been in my life ever since I was a baby. And, there's times where I don't know him, and then there's times that I do know him. So it was more of a learning step for him and I. But it was very emotional. Yeah.
Yeah. And when did he go into prison? Meaning, I guess I want to know your age, and at what age were you when he came out?
I was still the same age, 15, 16. It was around that time. So I was still in my sophomore year.
That meaning that he was in prison at that time or had come out?
The same. I was the same age when he got in and when he got out.
So he wasn't in very long. Is that what you're saying?
No, yeah, he's only been there for a couple months, but those couple months were it was still too powerful and too traumatizing.
That's interesting. I wasn't sure what you were saying. Yeah. So even a short amount of time where some kids have parents who will never come out and others for years and years and years from the time they're a baby. The young man we interviewed a while ago, he didn't even know where his dad was. And at 14 was told he was in prison. So every situation is so very, very different.
Yes.
So even though he was in for a short amount of time, it still had an impact on you.
Yeah.
Do you remember or did you visit your dad when he was in prison during that short period of time?
Yes, I did visit him with my older sister and my mother. Mm-hmm. All of us, with my father, we do not live in the same household. It's just my sister and I and my mom.
I see.
When we went to go visit him, I didn't want to go. My sister didn't want to go, but my mother pushed us to go because she knew that if my father saw us, she would have hope that he would change. Mm-hmm. But he didn't when he got out. It was the same pattern, but we just kept our walls together. And it was just a learning process. But
I see. Now, what's your relationship with your dad right now?
Right now, it's pretty good. Now that I'm older, I'm only 20 and I'm still learning how to communicate my emotions. Now that I'm a bit older, I'm aware of how some people, they don't change. But I try to be more involved with my father. But I also just keep in mind that he will never change. And since he's getting older now, like I'm kind of just like, you know what, like time is ticking, so I might as well try and create more memories with us.
Right. What are the difficult areas that you find in terms of communicating with him? Are there certain topics that you don't raise or issues?
So the biggest issue is me trying to communicate the trauma that he has caused throughout my childhood. Mm-hmm. There was this one particular time, which was the only time that I was about 19 years old, I think. I told him how he really hurt my feelings in a lot of situations and put me in danger. And he simply just laughed at me and didn't want to really acknowledge it. So that's at that moment I really realized that my father is he needs help, but he's not going to ever understand what he put us through. And he's kind of just like stepping over the past, but I will never forget it, and I hope that he will never forget it and know that there is a wall between my sister and my mother and I.
You mentioned your sister doesn't have much of a relationship with him now. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
Yes. She has completely cut ties with him. She hasn't seen him in about 3 years. She's never confronted my father. It's kind of just like